Hello, my name is Emily, and I am an international justice intern with the Advocates for Human Rights. I'm here today to walk you through using the UN submission database and do my best to answer any questions that you might have. So without further ado, let's begin the training. So first, on behalf of everyone at the Advocates, I want to extend you a hearty thank you. Your time and energy helps the Advocates for Human Rights build and maintain a centralized public database of all deadlines concerning the opportunities for civil society organizations to submit information to or otherwise engage with the UN and regional human rights mechanisms. This volunteer-driven project will enable people around the world to be able to use our database to search for a particular country and to see what deadlines are coming up and opportunities. So thank you. We are sincere when we say we really couldn't do this without you. So some objectives for the training today are that you first understand what the UN Submission Deadlines database is all about. Second, learn how the Advocates team of volunteer helps to build and sustain the database. And lastly, to understand your role and how to search for information to add to the database. To see what you will be contributing towards, you can check out our deadline database on our website using the link below. So before we get into this training, let's run over some basics of what this project is all about and how your work fits into the bigger picture. So for some background, the world of the UN and regional human rights mechanisms are vast. There's the Human Rights Council, the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, the Committee Against Torture. There's nearly 100 individual bodies in total. But for this project, your area of focus is the UN Special Procedures. You can learn more about these procedures at the website listed on the slide. This will kind of give you a little bit more background on how they were developed and just how they fit into the UN human rights mechanisms. Don't worry too much about the other treaty bodies and a large number of UN special procedures. Your task is to just keep tabs on a handful of them, which we will cover in the next section. Some general things to keep in mind as we do this project is that every 2 weeks, please visit the website for each human rights mechanism and find the newest info on submission deadlines. Use the online form that we will provide you and then enter that information into the online form. We will then take that information provided us via the form and update the database on our website. Alright, so now that we've covered kind of the basics of this project, we're going to run through an example. Feel free to follow along and jot down some notes or questions as we walk through this together. So the Advocates has sent you an email with the subject UN database, deadline database getting started. This email includes a step-by-step guide for volunteers tailored to specific UN and regional human rights mechanisms we've asked you to research, along with this training guide. So when you get it, open up the step-by-step guide attached to the email, and you'll see a document that looks just like this. As mentioned previously, you are assigned a block that includes multiple UN or regional human rights mechanism. It looks something like this. So the step-by-step guide for volunteers provides the block assigned to you. Other volunteers will receive a block or chunks of human rights mechanisms that have different mechanisms than yours. So for each of these human rights mechanisms, they can have their own set of deadlines for non-governmental organizations or NGOs, as we will refer to them throughout the rest of this presentation. In that they have different deadlines to submit materials regarding certain topics or specific countries. We're interested in those deadlines, and to find them, this guide helps you dig around the websites for each mechanism in your block. Not every human rights mechanism website is updated regularly. You may find no new information, and that's okay. These training materials will explain how to handle that result. Sometimes human rights mechanisms will change their deadlines without warning. You also may find new information for a deadline that you've already told us about. Don't worry, we'll walk through how to handle that as well. So once you've found the deadlines, you let us know about it by using the UN Submission Deadlines for NGOs form, and you can find that link on the form in your step-by-step guide, and it looks something like this. So then for each human rights mechanism that you have, that you're assigned to, update us every 2 weeks with the newest deadline information provided on their websites by following the instructions provided on the guide. All right, so we just ran through some of the basics and some general directions in the previous slides, but knowing that this process is a little confusing, even with all the materials provided, we'll be running through an example together. The example that we'll run through here will be pretty similar to the mechanisms that you were researching. So for our example, let's say we have Block 4, which includes the working group on the issues of human rights in transnational corporations and other business enterprises, which is one of the human rights mechanisms assigned to us in the block. So the first step is to go to the working group's website, and we can see that in step 1 of the guide, and the link is also provided for us. So after we click on the link, it should take us to a website that looks something very similar to this. So this is the website for that working group. So next, the guide directs our attention to specific areas of the working group's website where the info we want is most likely found. So some of the areas that we're looking for is the highlights section of the working group's website, and specifically we're looking for announcements of upcoming sessions and requests for information. We're also looking for updates or changes to any deadlines we've seen since the last time we visited this page. So while looking through the website, we see that, oh hey, there is a new post. So looking beneath the highlights section, this is circled on the slide in red, we find a call for inputs with a deadline of March 12th, provided just below the link. And yeah, we know that March 12th, 2018 probably has passed by the time you're reviewing these materials, but let's just pretend that this deadline is still upcoming and then it's still mid-February 2018. So before we move to the next step, we notice that there is a second call for inputs just beneath the one on March 12th. So for each deadline that you find, it is a separate entry into the form. So for now, let's just make a mental note to come back to that second call for inputs. But let's continue with the first one that we found. But let's pause for a second. What happens if we get to this point, but we have found nothing new on the mechanism's website? That's no big deal. Lots of UN websites have old information. They can have old announcements, calls for inputs that are out of date, and deadlines that passed months or even years ago. And if you find nothing new or nothing relevant, that's okay. If this happens, follow the directions for the mechanism as usual on the step-by-step guide, and when you get to the UN submission deadlines for NGO form, fill out the first 4 questions and leave the rest blank. That way we know that you looked and found nothing. So continuing from where we left off, this step-by-step guide tells us in step number 3 to click the link to find more information about the deadline. So we click that link and we are taken to the working group's second page called Open Call for Inputs to UN Working Group Report. Here we can see the topic for this call for inputs, which is ensuring respect for human rights in the context of economic diplomacy and investment trade promotion. We can also see that the deadline is provided once more, March 12, 2018. This might be a one-off for this mechanism. Sometimes UN bodies don't put the deadline on the main working group page, and they usually just put it in the call for inputs second page. So make sure that you check to make sure. So in addition, we can also see that we're given information on how to submit the inputs. They've given us an email address and a subject line to use. We want to make sure that we include all of that information in our update to the database. So finally, the step-by-step guide instructs us to enter all of that information that we've found on the working group's website using a form called UN Submission Deadlines for NGOs. The link to this online form is provided here on the guide, or is provided there on the guide for ease of access. So we just walked through finding information on the mechanism's website on the previous slides. Next, we're going to walk through how to submit the form with the information that we found using the slides above. Please remember, it is vital that you complete the form at least once every 2 weeks for each human rights mechanism in your assigned block. Even when you find no new information, that way we'll know that you looked and you found nothing. So let's see how the form works by adding the information we found using the example above. First, please enter your name. Note that the red asterisk makes this a required field. And then, using the drop-down menu, we select the UN body we are researching. So for this example, I've selected the working group on the issue of human rights and transnational corporations and other business enterprises. So then we type in the session number and dates, if any. Note that sometimes session numbers are uncommon for UN special procedures. In this example, because the working group provides no session number for its call for inputs, we just type in NA. So next, we make a selection from the drop-down list. Is the deadline that you found new, revised, or none? New means that you're adding this deadline to the database for the very first time. Revised indicates that the UN body has either changed a deadline or confirmed a tentative deadline. Choose this option if you're updating a deadline that you've previously entered into the database too. So none means that there are no new deadlines on the UN body's website, or that the UN body's website lists the exact same deadline as the last time you've entered in the deadline into the database or checked. So for this example, I've never found this deadline before, and because I'm adding this to the database for the very first time, I select New. So in this example, we also know from the step-by-step guide that this working group is a special procedure, and so we select Submission to Special Procedure. Each of the mechanisms assigned to you are UN special procedures. So for a majority of the opportunities, it should be a submission to special procedure. There are other volunteers who are handling the other opportunities on this drop-down list. If you aren't sure or certain about what you're looking at, select Other and use the Other info field at the very bottom of the form to enter the details you found about the submission. The announcement can refer to specific countries or can be very general. So look at the announcement to find out if there are certain countries involved. If you do find countries mentioned, list each one, but if no specific countries are mentioned, type all because the announcement applies globally. In this example, the working group calls for inputs but does not mention any specific countries. So it applies to every country. So then I just type in all. So then you add the deadline. So you need to type it in as month, day, year, year. If the mechanism only provides a month for the deadline, use the first of the month as a deadline. So April 2018 should be entered in as 04/01/2018. Second, look at the announcement to see if the website lists the deadline as confirmed. If you don't know, select tentative and make sure to check back in 2 weeks to see if the deadline has been confirmed. So finally, add any other information that you might have found. If needed, you can use the Other info field if you are unsure about any of the form's drop-down options. In this example, the working group provides a topic for their call for inputs, which is ensuring respect for human rights in the context of economic diplomacy and investment trade promotion. The working group also provided an email address and an appropriate subject line, so I just copy that information and paste that info right into the form. Yay, we finished the form. So hopefully this has helped clear up some questions or concerns you might have had and made you feel a little bit more comfortable working with the materials and doing this work with us. But remember, we found 2 opportunities in this example. What we would do next is fill out the form again to make sure that the advocate knows about the other deadline as well, following the same steps as we did for the first submission. Remember to complete the form once for each deadline that you find, and then just continue with the step-by-step guide. Follow the same process for all UN and regional human rights mechanisms assigned in your block. The step-by-step guide will help you know where to go and what to look for, and you can always return to these training materials if you get stuck. So hopefully this presentation helped you understand a little bit more about your role with this project. The PDF version of this PowerPoint is another source that you can use. And if you have any questions, please contact Amy Bergquist. Her email address is listed in the slide, and she'll be able to answer any questions that you might have. But thank you so much for helping out the advocates. The International Justice Interns will be checking in with you regularly just to make sure that you're comfortable with your block. And we'll be looking for your UN deadline submissions. Thank you so much, and have a great day.